Hello and welcome back. This is the time for the 9 p.m. daily quiz. I hope all of you are doing good and you have been attending all these quizzes. This is the place where you can revise a day's current affairs and test your knowledge. Today I have around 9 questions for you based on the most important news stories that hit the headline for the last 24 to 48 hours. Let's begin. Bring your pen and paper and do tell me in the comment section how much did you score in today's quiz as well. Starting with the first question, this is from economics. India's latest inflation bulletin shows the divergence between CPI headline inflation and core inflation. Which of the following scenarios best explains why headline inflation may fall while core remains sticky? So basically they are saying headline inflation has fallen, core inflation has not fallen. Why that may be the case? This is because of a sharp drop in global commodity prices but rising food inflation, fall in rural wages coupled with the rise in MSP, decline in volatile food and fuel prices, while services and housing inflation remains firm, the rupee's appreciation causing higher import costs. Now, to answer this question, you just need to understand the difference between core inflation and the other inflations. In core inflation, you do not consider food and fuel. These are two things that are kept out of it. So you have to look for options that can explain that difference. The answer thus here is B. A decline in volatile food and fuel prices, but the services and housing inflation that are a part of the core inflation that still remain. That is why if food and fuel prices fall, but housing, services, etc. remain elevated, headline inflation will decline, but the core inflation will remain as it is. This is what we are seeing in India's case right now. Second question then. A recent hydrological survey found accelerated lateral erosion along the Burhi-Dihing river. The Burhi-Dihing is a major tributary of which river? Is it a tributary of Teesta, Subansiri, Brahmaputra or Sankosh? Static question from geography, but this is also in the news. The answer here is Brahmaputra. This is a very important tributary of Brahmaputra. There was a recent news that it has been, because the government has identified some of these rivers that have gone through lateral erosion. This is one of those rivers specifically. Moving on to question number 3 now. A state election commission issues a directive postponing municipal polls citing law and order issues. Under the constitutional scheme, the decisions of SEC can never be reviewed by courts. SEC must follow binding instruction of the state government. SEC, that is the State Election Commission, decisions are subject to judicial review if procedural impropriety or malafide is shown. SEC can postpone elections only with the approval of the Election Commission of India. Now, as you know, the State Election Commission, as a constitutional body, was set up by the 73rd Amendment Act. They are responsible for conducting elections in the municipalities and the panchayats. Which of these is correct regarding them? This. The decisions are subject to judicial review if proper procedures are not followed and if there's a malified intention. Their decisions are not above judicial review. In fact, even the decision of the Election Commission of India can be challenged. So what is the State Election Commission anyways? The answer thus here is B. This body came into being, as I said, with the 73rd Amendment Act. Next, question number 4. India's new integrated FAB strategy emphasizes, FAB is fabrication, strategy emphasizes design, FAB, OSAT synergy. What is the OSAT stage responsible for? Is it responsible for designing the chip architecture? Is it for packaging, testing and assembling semiconductor chips for after fabrication? Is it depositing dopants into silicon wafers? Or is it creating EUV lithography masks? This is slightly technical. If you want to make a guess, think about this. Design, fab, OSAT. So basically OSAT comes after fab or after fabrication. Now look at this. Packaging, testing, assembling semiconductor chips after fabrication. This is what fits in perfectly. The answer here has to be C. In these cases, even when you do not know the exact answer, you can make an educated guess. OSAT stands for outsourced semiconductor assembly and testing. This happens after fabrication. Fabrication basically means when you have to put all these small little components on the chip. After that, the next stage is the OSAT. Next, question number 5. The government recently expanded landscape level restoration model in degraded forest beds. What is the defining feature of landscape level restoration? Does it focus exclusively on monoculture plantations? It focuses on replacement of forest rights with centralized conservation governance. Restoration measured at ecosystem scale. integrating hydrology, species diversity, and local livelihoods. Or fourth, restoring forest only through assisted natural regeneration. Which of these explains the landscape level restoration model? So restoration basically means bring the forest back to life. How exactly is it done? In this model, restoration is measured at ecosystem scale. It integrates various other aspects of the society, hydrology, species diversity, and local livelihoods, all of them considered together. The answer thus here is B. Next is question number 6. A new export competitiveness report noted a sudden rise in India's unit value realization for marine products. This UVR refers to what? Again, extremely important. The unit value realization. First, quantity of export per manufacturing unit, increase in domestic tariff on imported components, export value per unit of product shipped, or market share of India in global fisheries production. What is UVR? It is unit value production. It is this. The export value per unit of the product shipped. So all the product that we are shipping to other parts of the world, if you look at the average value of a product, this is considered as a UVR. It's a term that you will see very often being used in terms of economics, trade between the two countries to measure how good our trade has been. Next is question 7. India recently supported a proposal for a plurilateral responsible AI compact. Which principle is the most consistent with India's long-standing digital diplomacy stance? Open source mandatory for all AI models globally. Are we fighting for that? No. Sovereign AI governance plus interoperability of AI standards without a single global regulator? Yes. This is what you're fighting for. So, basically, India's stand is that countries are sovereign, so they should be getting the right to determine their own rules and regulations. On the other hand, we should also ensure interoperability of AI standards. Means if there are certain AI standards set in US, they should be interoperable with that in India or in Europe and other parts of the world. There should not be one single global regulator because they would have increasing power. We would not want that, but we do want that whatever standards are set, these are interoperable amongst each other. Next, question number 8. A High Court invalidates a state-issued environmental regulation citing colorable exercise of power. What does this doctrine imply? This, as you know, is a doctrine of colorable legislation. This is what they're referring to. Regulation is valid if it has public support. The state legislated an area reserved for union while disguising the true purpose. The government can legislate regardless of legislative entries, or only parliament can question such misuse. What is the idea of doctrine of colorable legislation? Simple idea is, in the 7th schedule, we have separate union list, state list, etc. But when the state, for example, passes a law, they are trying to infringe on the union government, but they are hiding it under some provision that is called doctrine of colorable legislation. This will not be allowed. The answer is B. When a state legislated an area reserved for the union while disguising the true purpose, not showing the true purpose of this, trying to hide that fact. The answer thus is B. Moving on to the last question for the day. This is question number 9. A government increases capital expenditure but keeps fiscal deficit unchanged. What situation makes this possible? So the government of India, for example, is spending much more on building bridges, airport, roads, but somehow our fiscal deficit is not increasing. How is that possible? Revenue deficit increases sharply, equivalent of cut in interest payments. There is equivalent cut in interest payments. Tax buoyancy improves and non-tax revenues rise simultaneously. FRBM Act automatically relaxes deficit targets. This is, by the way, an ideal kind of a situation where you spend more money but the deficit doesn't increase. This is possible because of this. Tax buoyancy improves, so you have much more tax getting collected from the people, the tax efficiency improves, and non-tax revenue also rises. Non-tax revenue of the government, for example, can be the money that the government companies are earning, the interest that we are getting on the loans that we had paid, the RBI is transferring the surplus, all that is non-tax revenue. So the answer here is C, which brings me to the end of today's quiz. I hope you got most of the questions right. Do tell me in the comment section how many did you get right. Do watch my other initiatives as well. I've recently started an initiative of key concepts in Indian economy to simplify economics for all of you. Do watch that as well. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Jai.